What's up, you beautiful people? Welcome back to another episode of Unaligned and Unfiltered. I'm your host, Jack, or the Twisted Wanderer, and welcome back to finally Twisted Thursdays. So excited to be sitting here finally and getting this episode out. This episode is in honor of Pride Month. We are doing Twisted Thursdays to celebrate Pride. So we're going to have some episodes dropping, not on Thursdays, but we got to honor Pride Month. So I'm behind, but we are here. It is Twisted Thursday, and I want to share my story about being a bi human and take you all on that journey of, just kind of learning more about yourself, coming into yourself, and really understanding kind of why your identity is so important. And I just like to shout out that I'm still on this journey. I am just feeling more confident with myself. And that's for a couple of reasons that I will share today in this pod. But just want to share that it's okay to be at the beginning of this journey and be completely like, do I identify with that? Do I identify with this? It's okay to identify as something and then take that identity away and choose a different identity. This is such a journey for all of us who represent as queer, as lesbian, as gay, as bi, as transgender, as pansexual, as intersexual, as asexual, so I just really want to shout out that there's no rush for this. You're not behind in any way. I just want to share my journey in hopes to help someone who may be fresh and brand new on their own journey. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. And I hope it just brings light to more of who I am and the community that I am trying to create with all you beautiful people who do tune in and listen to this podcast. So let's scoliosis. Okay. So straight up. Ha. That's a funny pun because nothing about me is straight. But for real, buy up for this. I like that. Anyway, I digress here. But any hoosers. So I always knew that I liked people. I always knew that there was something different about me, if you will. And, growing up, a proud millennial over here. But growing up, we don't get taught at all. Queer history, gay history, lesbian, bisexual, transgender history, any of it really, that whole umbrella, like even in health class, like you think you would learn about like intersex or asexual, like these things that, not things, but like these identities that represent beautiful people in the world, right? Like there are queer and these types of people in the world. So you just think that you would learn about this, but you don't. But you don't know that you're not learning about that, right? So when you're in it, you kind of feel different and you kind of you question things, but you're like, personally for me, I was met with just binary answers and just people who they themselves maybe have not identified the way I identify. So they weren't helpful in kind of forming who I would later, like today, become and understand myself to be. So you can't be mad at yourself for not knowing what you don't know. You can't be upset about yourself for not knowing what you don't know. But what you can do is give yourself grace for the journey that you're on, especially a journey that is within the LGBTQIA2S plus community. And so my journey started pretty young. I would say from a really young age, honestly, because they teach, like from a conservative point of view, like the big thing these days is like, oh, you're pushing queerness or gayness or transgenderness on my child. And I'm just here to straight up say that is false, because as someone who always knew they were different and later identified as bisexual, I I knew that I was attracted to people from a young age. And just because, and only because I didn't have vocabulary and representation, I think that's why, I know that's why in my heart, why this journey takes so long for many of us. And it can be different. Like, I'm only speaking for my journey and how I feel it does become for us in it, as someone who identifies as queer. And I think that's really important to just shout out right from the get-go before we get into this episode, is because it's like, we know who we are from the beginning. We have feelings, we have inklings, we have our soul, like our person with inside us that we know. And it's unfortunate that there is no representation and that there is no education or history being taught, because it unfortunately made me internalize. It made me feel shameful. I think even sometimes, because of the only way I knew how to identify, it even made me like act a certain way, because I thought that's how you had to act as a bisexual. And we'll get into that. But I just really wanted to call that out first and just share that if there is someone who is maybe conservative who's listening, it's not representation. It's not us pressuring your kids to be a certain way. They just are a certain way, and it's beautiful. And all they need is a supportive person in their life who's going to love them no matter what. And yeah, so that's just something I like to shout out before. So obviously, I said it started young for me. I will say my first time with, a first time ever being, wow, kind of ever being intimate, like really intimate, was with a woman for me. And that was in my first year of seventh grade. I always got to call out the first year because it just helps me keep track of my life. But it was in my first year of seventh grade, and it was at a sleepover. So, going back to my point, like, kids are going to experiment and do what they feel regardless of representation. So, it would just be really helpful to have that representation, because I think it would have taken away some of the shame I maybe have carried from that one experience, like growing up as a kid, not now, but like in that moment, kind of being younger, as I've kind of tried to go back and like process and put things together for this episode. I think that just having representation and knowing that this was okay to do and so normal to do would have definitely helped with the shame. And, through therapy and stuff, like, I'm working on that shame, but I'm digressing. But like, I don't have shame about being bisexual at all. I'm so, so, so proud to be a bisexual person. And before I talk more about this, I would also like to share that bisexual is a person who is attracted to two or more genders. That is what bisexual by definition means. And while I was having a good time at a sleepover, okay, and having fun time with my girlfriend, just like friend, just, hey girl, thanks for going down on me. There was consent and everything. But it's just really funny to think about being like so much older now. Like, so yeah, that was my first experience. And it was your awkward first experience, but it kind of led me into where I'm going to go next, which was understanding a bit more about myself. Like, from that experience, that experience happened before I was ever exposed to what bisexuality was. And what I mean by that is, for any millennial who is listening, maybe knows the show A Shot at Love by Tila Tequila. And that was my first time ever seeing a person, date boys and girls, if you will. And again, two or more genders, but like specifically, this was the first time where I saw someone who was bisexual. This was the first time I ever heard the word bisexual. So it opened so much in my mind, but also like kept it to a narrow path because this was like the only representation. And I personally, I don't know if I questioned it. I think I kind of just was like, wow, there's a word out there. And that feels like things that I have been experiencing in my life. And that just felt, if I think about it now, it means so much to me. But I don't think I understood the gravity of that, the weight of that when I was younger. And that's expected. Like, we're fucking young, okay? We don't know. We don't know so much. Even though we think we know everything, we don't know caca. So I would just like, yeah. So Tila Tequila, I was like, wow, like holy cannoli. Someone who kind of feels how I feel. And I think like it's so, and this is coming up right now as I'm kind of processing, but I think it's kind of, for lack of a better word right now, I think it's really kind of dangerous to only have one point of view for like what bisexuality is. And no, I actually really concur with that statement now. It is dangerous because the true thing about bisexuality is that it is so fluid in its own. Like, right? The definition to itself is two or more genders. And that is not something that's meant to be fit into a box or this or that. Bisexuality to me is like and, like not or. It's and this and that and. That's how I see it. And now how I see it now. But as, a young, vulnerable young teen, I didn't see that. I only saw one way, and I thought that was the way. And I think that led me into maybe like over sexualizing myself as a kid. And like that, like as a grown adult, like, we have permission to sexualize yourself and be in your sexuality as you see comfortable and fit for you. But as a kid, I felt like looking back, I just kind of wish I had more examples, more representation, maybe queer adults in my life to kind of guide me. Not saying I've listened to them, but rebel. But just having that, I think like really can help a child navigate this because the journey on its own, I can tell you, it's a long one. And just going back to being young and experimenting and being with my first girl, it was just it was fun. And I will say that it just, yeah, it kind of like led me down just this path of, I don't know, just exploring and having fun, but also maybe putting myself in situations that probably weren't the best for me. But that's with any journey, right? Like it's not just because you're queer or bisexual. These things happen because we make sex and sexuality so taboo and so one fucking way, and you learn about it one way, that like all this shame kind of pours into yourself and we internalize this. And it's not really a shocker to me that it's taken me, this long. I would say over these, maybe the same time that I've been showing up online for scoliosis, like that I've found other people with scoliosis who are bisexual that like have these journeys. And it's just like, we need representation. We need scoliosis in media represented good. We need bisexuality represented in media. We need to be taught the history of how many badass bisexual fucking people in the community got shit done. And I think I will get to that, but I'm just so passionate about it because once you start to really understand and look inwards, you can kind of understand how beautiful it is to identify however you do identify, and to really understand that, like, it's not just like who I'm partnering with. It's kind of how I see the world. I don't see the world as or. I always see it as and. And the more I get to see other bi creators, and the more I look into my history, like, all of that comes full circle because there's so many bisexual people who feel that similarity. And I say that all to maybe a baby bi listen to the podcast. Like, you're not late, you're perfectly on time, and this journey is yours and yours alone. And just take care of yourself on that journey. So, going back to little Jack, after that sleepover, it would have been like a bit until I was with the woman again. Of course, like, I was always kissing girls. I just thought, people are beautiful, and I just like to kiss them. So I kiss a lot of people. But I will like to say today, I would love to talk about going into now, kind of my coming out story. And this is just, oh goodness gracious. My coming out story, I feel like I remember letting people know I was bi, like friends and stuff like that. But the biggest story that came to mind while I was thinking about, like, talking about all this for this episode, was the fact that, shout out my Aunt Patti Ann, but she fucking outed me. Okay. My Aunt Patti Ann ended up outing me to my grandfather. Rest his soul. He died at 96. And yeah, sorry, Grandpa. I'm not laughing about your death, Grandpa. You know me too well. I love you and I miss you. But this story just makes me really laugh. So my Aunt Patti Ann outed me, and I was pissed. Like, I want to tell you, like, I probably held on to this grudge for quite a bit. So, love you, Aunt Patti Ann, if you're listening. Like, I don't have this grudge anymore. I don't know if I ever told you I had this grudge, but it's over. So if you listen to this, I love you. But yeah, she completely outed me. And it was, to give context to this situation, I was in high school and I was going to drive up to, shout out to this beautiful person, if you ever hear this podcast, like, yeah. So I was driving up to Cortland to go see a gal that I had a crush on for quite a bit, but it was the first time where I felt like feelings, and that, like, you're older, you're driving 7 hours to see a gal. It was for a rugby tournament weekend. I don't know if I've ever shared, but I used to play rugby. I unfortunately had to give up playing rugby. Thank you, fucking scoliosis and doctors who tell you to not move. But that is for a Scully Sunday. So nonetheless, I was driving to Cortland to see this girl that I had a crush on and watch her play rugby because she's a badass rugby player. And I was just really excited, really nervous, like such a baby bi. And I wanted to tell my grandfather because, like, that's where I was going. And I was like, okay, like, what if this becomes something? Like, I want to come out. I want this to just, like, I don't want to live in the closet. And that is to say, like, pause alert here. That is to say, there's a very valid reason for living in the closet, especially these days. But So shout out to all my beautiful people in the closet. Happy Pride. I love you. But yeah, I personally didn't want to be in it at that time, and it was a very different time compared to now. But kind of the same. Yeah. Anyway, any hoosers. So high school, end of high school. I mean, end of high school. So it's probably like 2010 fall or 2011 spring that this is happening. And I wanted to tell my grandpa, Aunt Patti Ann beat me to it, and all I remember is being really angry. But I want to talk about how important it is to, if you can, don't blow up your person's fucking coming out story. That is theirs, and everyone needs to feel safe and comfortable coming out because there's very valid reasons for us not to come out. So please, if anyone comes out to you, or if you yourself are thinking of coming out to someone, just make sure it is a safe space and that no one is gonna steal your story. Not steal your story. No offense, Aunt Patti Ann. But like jump the gun, if you will. So yeah, I went and I was very nervous. I think the only thing we did was hold hands. And it's so funny because I'm much older compared to 7th grade, but I couldn't bind myself to feel confident or wanted enough. And I know that had nothing to do with the person I was visiting. It was just like all internal because we don't like talk about things. And I don't feel like I ever talked about it. Like I was about it, like making out with people and just sharing that, like, yeah, I'm bi. I know I'm interested in more than one person, more than one gender. But that's like really it. And I don't think there was ever a time where like the deepness of it was understood until much later in life. And like that's why it's so important to learn about our history, because our history and the people who have come before us, if you will, like like the LGBTQIA 2S plus ancestors, if you will, because the biggest thing with this community is a lot of us choose our family because a lot of us get kicked out of our own family, or we feel like our family doesn't understand our queerness to the depthness of the depth that we need them to really truly feel seen and heard. And I think that has a really, really big deal with being able to look internal, to understand the gravity of it. And it's just something, it just makes me sad to think about because I'm grateful for where I am now, but I just really hope people who are coming out now, queer kids who are coming out now, are able to find like the history of it, because that has been a game changer in like understanding the people who have come before me and what they've fought for, and vocabulary and words and stories from people who share similarities. It's just going to give us more information to understand who we are, because even though they're different people, they share a lot of experiences that are similar. So it's just really important to have that so we can navigate who we are, because life is such a fucking journey. And so I think that's where I want to move into now, is sharing with you all like my bisexuality and the LGBTQIA2S plus community. I have such a deep love for this community, and it's become more important to me than ever because I've learned more. And I want to share that all with you now. Like what I mean by that is, we don't, we don't learn about Stonewall. And that, to me, is crazy. Like, take away, like, of course, like, we didn't have representation besides, like, Tila Tequila. We didn't learn history. We didn't have vocabulary in health class. Like, everything was so heteronormative with everything we learned about. So it's not shocking that we weren't taught about Stonewall, but it doesn't make it any less wrong and infuriating, because Stonewall is the reason, it's the reason why we have pride. It is the reason why, yes, many anti-LGBTQIA2S plus laws are going through this country right now, but it's also like, sorry, I get so passionate. I lose my train of thought. ADHD, why do you do this? Okay. So the history of it is so important, and it's able to give us clarity that we're not walking alone and that we weren't the first ones. So a few people I want to talk about, because like Stonewall is the reason that we have pride as we know it, rights as we know it, even though like I said, there are anti fucking laws being passed every day and we need to be fighting back, but learning about it can give you this power back to learn more about yourself, to validate yourself, to wipe away shame and understand you are not alone in this journey, no matter how alone you may feel at times. Because, you know, I recently watched the documentary of Marsha P. Johnson. And Marsha P. Johnson was a fucking badass, beautiful, Black, transgender, bisexual woman. And she and Sylvia Rivera, because I feel like they just go hand in hand together, because they were like really good friends. You watch the documentary. It's really, really beautiful. I definitely recommend it. It's also very heartbreaking, because you will see that the fight that we're in has existed long before Stonewall. But what they did during Stonewall, it was a riot, and they refused to back down. And even before that, Marsha P. Johnson walked with her flower crown held up high. And she was dead set on, if not everyone is free, then no one is free. There's no cause for celebration until everyone is free. And the weight that carries, and understanding that like Marsha P. Johnson was taken from us, and her case is still open, and we don't know what happened to Marsha, like still to this day, because cops ruled it as a suicide and just closed the case and was done. But Marsha's friends, family refused to let that happen. And you'll see this in the documentary with Victoria Cruz, a good friend of Marsha's, who just, so many people refused to be like, no, fuck you. Like, this is not what happened. And I say all this because it's so important to know lives were lost for the rights that we have now. And that's why it's so important to, if you can, show up for yourself, show up for your transgender siblings in this community, speak out for them, speak out for Black and brown people, women, men, transgender women, because if it was not for them, they were at the lead of this movement. And I wish I knew that growing up. I wish I was able to This may be really uncomfortable to hear, but I wish I was able to kind of decenter whiteness sooner because, and we can get into this in a different episode, but because I want to, we're going to be talking about lots of stuff as we continue to talk about the history of pride. Um but I really wish I could have decentered my whiteness sooner, because ever since like I've been able to do, and it's not like I've centered my whiteness, but like I feel like you can see in that documentary that there was a problem even in the beginning of the LGBTQIA2S plus community, that whiteness was being centered because our transgender siblings were being left behind, because we were gaining traction and the movement. And you can see Sylvia's fucking speech in that documentary is called "Y'all Better Quiet Down," because she was being booed and they tried to keep her off the stage during the first ever fucking movement for Pride after Stonewall. And it just goes to show, like, we have to understand that there is a privilege here, because yes, I am bisexual, but I also am not a black or brown or ethnically diverse, if you will, bisexual. I am white, right? I personally like identify as Italian these days, but like for this like I'm white because right now in our day and age, I have privilege for my whiteness, and I am safer just because of that. And that's why I'm speaking out on this, because it's such an important thing to learn, especially if you don't know that black and brown people fought for these rights for you. And you are sitting here as a white person who does identify as queer. You need to know that. That's important history, because we can't just, it's just really important. That's where I'll end with that, because I want to talk more about how I'm grateful for the people who came before me, but we are nowhere near done for the fight that's ahead of us. And in order to be really, really together, we all need to be on the same page. And that means learning the history of where you come from, learning the history of the people who have fought for your rights, who have lost their fucking lives for these rights. Marsha P. Johnson lost her life. And we still don't know what happened to her. And she is but one of many siblings in this community that we have lost and that we continue to lose. So it may feel heavy if you're listening to this and you are white, but this is a time to give yourself some grace, but learn more. And once you learn more about where you're from, once you learn more about the vocabulary, the history, it kind of helps you piece together all the things. And that's what's been game changing for me, because has it taken a very long time to navigate things and understand things as a whole? Yes, but at the end of the day, I got here. We get there. And we have to give ourselves grace, because it's not like there's like representation or history being taught to us. But I'm here to tell you that there is so much history, and it is heartbreakingly beautiful. It is strength. It is perseverance. It is joy. It is community, and it is love like I have never fucking seen in my life. And that is why I am proud to be bisexual. I am proud to be speaking out for this community. I am proud to say that trans lives matter. I am proud to say that Black trans lives matter. Brown trans lives matter. We need to really, really come together. And the more that we learn and unlearn and decenter things that do not serve this community as a whole, the more we can be all together in this, the more that we can fight back in this. So just like definitely go watch Marsha P. Johnson, The Life of Marsha P. Johnson. It's on Netflix. It's really amazing. It's beautiful. It's heartbreaking. But if anything, I hope you take away that like your life matters and people you didn't even know are fighting for you before you're even born. And that's really beautiful. So thank you, Marsha P. Johnson. Thank you, Sylvia Rivera. Thank you, Victoria Cruz. Thank you, Brenda Howard, for, creating fucking Pride. She is a bisexual woman who created Pride. We need to remember these people when we're in Pride Month. And I've been really enjoying learning more about who came before me because it's making me understand so much more. And once we can understand ourselves more, we can help others more. We can help the world more because we're not gonna change the entire world, but what we can do is change little corners of our lives and share our stories and share our journeys, right? Of course, it's vulnerable to sit here and say, it took me a bit, but like, I'm proud that I'm here and I'm queer and I'm bi and I'm learning and I'm unlearning and I'm embracing and I'm advocating. Like that is where we get the work done. It's not in sitting in guilt or wallowing that we wish we knew sooner. Nothing good comes from shame or any of that. And like, yeah, is it valid to feel that? Of course, but like once we can get to the other side, I feel like that's where the true meaning of it goes. That's where the work goes. And if you're scared, I think my one piece of advice would be like, listen to Y'all Better Quiet Down. Because Sylvia Rivera did not get, I'm sure maybe she did get, I don't know. She's just a force to be reckoned with. And she was booed by her own community. And that to me is just like infuriating, but also like that fucking badass woman stood 10 toes fucking down and did not budge. She got her fucking point across and she let her community know, like, what are you doing? Your people are writing to me because they need help. What are you doing? Like, this community was made because we were all being fucking attacked. And now that some of us have rights, like, you're just gonna leave some people behind. Like, that's not okay. So I just fucking love that speech. I hope will go listen to it. I will link it. I'm gonna find a YouTube link and put it in there because it is just such a beautiful speech and everyone should hear it. And please go watch Marsha P. Johnson because what a fucking beautiful woman. What a badass woman. What strength. And whew, yeah. I'm grateful for the people who came before me, and I will not let their losses be in vain. And we just got to keep doing the work, and we got to keep sharing our stories, and we got to keep having pride and love for who we are and who the people in our community are, because each person, each letter and the plus sign, whatever it may be, LGBTQIA2S plus, while those are letters, there are multiple people, millions, billions of people behind those letters. And all those people want is the freedom to love and live freely and safely. And we are not going to get there on our own. We need to get there united, and we need to get there supporting each other. And the best way that we can do that is by sharing our own journeys, by learning, and by looking to our history to understand just how much these rights cost us. And we are not going anywhere. And we will always be here, because being queer or bi or trans is as natural as the moon rising and setting, natural as the sun rising and setting. And that's the truth. So, with that, I'm going to leave a lot of, not a lot of, but I'm going to leave resources in the description box about where you can find more about history, excuse me, creators and podcasts that I listen to that have helped me. Yeah, so I hope you'll check those out. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Sorry this took so long to get out. I know I posted it and then it went away. So I just really, really appreciate your patience with all this. And I hope this all landed well. It is the first time that I am speaking about my sexuality, like verbally, and just sharing my journey with it. So yeah, if you have any questions, please always feel free. You can reach out to me, twistedwanderer418@gmail.com. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, like the podcast, share the podcast, comment. These are all things that are going to help us build this beautiful, amazing, twisted community, because the goal here is to just keep building community of twisted people. So I love you all. I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful Twisted Thursday. Happy Pride Month. I will see you all on Scully Sunday for a scoliosis episode. But until then, take care of your spine, take care of your mind. I'll see you next time. Happy Pride. Bye.